Today, Britain learned it will soon get its seventh Prime Minister in a decade. Keir Starmer stood outside 10 Downing Street this morning and announced his resignation. His voice broke as he spoke, and he said his party had told him that he was no longer the right person to lead them into the next election. He accepted that with what he called good grace. He lasted 23 months. Starmer came into office in July 2024 with a massive majority. Labour had won a stunning 411 seats. It was the biggest election victory for the party since Tony Blair in 1997, which is a moment I vividly remember since I was living in London in those days and I was following the election from the Dutch embassy where I was posted those days. Now, Starmer promised stability. He promised an end to conservative chaos, and he promised to lower the temperature of British politics, and none of it survived contact with Peter Mandelson. Starmer appointed Mandelson as British ambassador to Washington. The calculation made sense at the time because Mandelson knew trade and he knew how to handle powerful people, and he was the man who had helped secure a deal with Washington that protected Britain from the worst of Trump's tariffs. But then the Epstein files arrived. Mandelson's name appeared repeatedly in the documents released by the US Justice Department in January. He had shared sensitive government information with Epstein. He had remained close to Epstein after Epstein's conviction for sex offenses, and when those details became public, Starmer sacked him. And then it emerged that Mandelson had failed to his security vetting before the appointment. And then it emerged that Downing Street had known about this and had said nothing. I want to name something that doesn't get said enough. Those very same Epstein files also name American figures, politicians and businessmen and men of great wealth and influence. And roughly half of those documents remain unreleased in the United States. The Americans named in the files that have been released have faced nothing. No resignations, no investigations, while the British Prime Minister lost his job over those documents. American figures in the same files, they just carry on as before, and that is the contrast that I think matters. Starmer had many other problems. It was not just the Mandelson case that made him lose his job. His party lost councils to Nigel Farage, Reform UK, that Labour had held for decades. And Reform now polls 7 points ahead of Labour nationally. And the welfare cuts, U-turn, and the winter fuel payment reversal, and then on top of that this Mandelson disaster, every misstep compounded the last. And what finally broke him was Andy Burnham, the former mayor of Greater Manchester, who ran for a parliamentary seat recently specifically to challenge Starmer, and he won with 55% of the vote. And the scale of that win told Labour MPs everything they needed to know. So by Sunday night, cabinet ministers were telling Starmer privately that it was over. And then he made his decision at the Prime Minister's country retreat. Now, Burnham will almost certainly become Britain's next Prime Minister, possibly by mid-July, July 18th, I think is mentioned. And tomorrow is the 10th anniversary of the Brexit referendum, the vote that was supposed to return stability to Britain, the vote after which one Prime Minister after another had failed to complete a term, 7 Prime Ministers in a decade. And I've covered European politics for a long time, and it's hard to think of another major European democracy where the political churn has been this severe, this sustained, and for this long. Well, I guess Italy has quite a track record since the Second World War, but still, 7 prime ministers in a decade is quite exceptional and certainly nothing to be proud of. Britain is a close ally. It's an important country. It's a nation with real influence in the world. So what happens in Britain really matters. And right now, what is happening there is that no one can hold power long enough to effectively govern. Brexit was never a good idea in the first place. Tomorrow, the disastrous vote celebrates its 10th birthday, and it didn't signal the beginning of the EU falling apart. Not at all. Instead, the EU has become much more popular, not just in the EU itself, but surprisingly maybe also amongst a large majority of the UK voters. So leaving the EU wasn't easy, but getting back in may prove to be far more challenging for the UK.